I watched majority of Saturday night's main event. I did fast forward through, the commercials. I did watch majority of the show. I was kind of occupied the next morning, so it was kind of like I had the kids around and stuff like that. So I was kind of in and out, so I wasn't able to like 100% focus. Um, AEW side, I watched very little, but I did get recaps and I read stuff and I read both sides of it, like people that are AEW marks and then people that are not again, not AEW fans, so to speak, to kind of get the perspective and the overall consensus from what I read and the highlights I saw, because I got to give AEW social media credit. They do put a lot of great clips on there, so I was able to watch a lot of stuff that I didn't get to see, the night of the show. And from what I saw and what I read and just talking to different wrestling fans and seeing what they're saying, seeing as well, pretty darn good show. What was your perspective being in the attendance?
I mean, it was a good show. It's difficult, obviously, as somebody who is very critical of the length of the show. The show ended around 12:10 Eastern time with an 8 o'clock start. I will tell you, and I saw somebody online kind of put this out there, and I'll be first and foremost, and this would maybe even go in the WWE realm as well if the events were this long. But whether it's WWE without matches or AEW with matches, I'm at the point where I'm kind of skipping the pre-show, and I'm not alone in that. I think a lot of people were doing that. Some
Yeah.
people were doing that unintentionally. This is the second, not wrestling event, but second big event that I've gone to recently. Both happen to be in the New York City area, where getting into the event was just like, I don't know if lately they're just low staffed. When it comes to security and things like that. But I've had some difficulty getting into events recently. Over an hour outside of an arena event that I went to, which was a concert about a few months ago. And that's not typical. If you're used to going to an arena, let's say you're going to a basketball or hockey game, and the event starts at 8 o'clock, and you're at the arena at 7 o'clock, you shouldn't miss puck drop, right? That's just ridiculous. And I will say the plan wasn't to get in the arena on time. The plan was to get in the arena around 7:30 because I wanted to get to my seat for the main card. So I got in line at 7 o'clock. About 7:45, I did get in, being in line. So it took 45 minutes outside waiting in line, which wasn't as bad as the previous thing. So I did manage to get in. So I did miss the pre-show more than I expected to, because of that. And a lot of people who maybe weren't expecting to do that missed out on the pre-show. So I hope in the world some of these places get their events in order, because I've gone to bigger events, which is crazy. These are all 14,000 seat events. I go to WrestleMania every year. It starts at last year at 3 o'clock. I'm in line at 2:30. I don't miss a thing, right? To get into the door. And that's 80,000 people or 50,000 or whatever. So it can be done, right? It's not a difficult thing. Like I don't wait outside for hours on hours to get in an event. So that's a new thing. But one of the big things with AEW, and again, to people like myself, I wasn't alone in this, and with the length of events, is that when the card is over, unlike a lot of WWE events, people are taken off. I've noticed this at the Full Gear that I went to. I noticed this at this event as well. So even though MJF, and there was a thing after the show was over, with Darby Allin and Kevin Knight coming out. A lot of us kind of miss that stuff. Maybe, again, not the hardcore AEW fan. I go to a mix of both. But I wasn't alone. And when the bell rang, you kind of are giving it like 2 seconds to see if anything really important's happening. And then you're taking off. And then
It's
you
like a
hear
mass exodus.
it's like a mass exit because, again, it's 12 o'clock at night. You've been in the arena for 5 hours. In New York City specifically, a lot of the people got to catch trains. That was kind of a big mix-up that made the news after the event was over about some confusion when it comes to that and lack of public transportation. I was in a vehicle, so I got out of there pretty quickly. But for people taking public transportation and kind of on a little bit of a schedule, they got to get out of there. So that is kind of a negative when it comes to these events being so long that you're not kind of kicking around. After WrestleMania was over, like night one, night two, it was only about a 3 hour event. I'm taking my time getting out of there. In this sense, not the same, right? You're kind of taking off because, it's already past midnight Eastern time. So if you miss something, you'll have to hear about it on Dynamite the upcoming week. But overall, a good event. I don't think anything went too exceptionally long. I could think of a match or two that could just be completely left off this card. That wasn't necessarily a bad match, but just it's a lot, right?
I mean, the Stadium
But
Stampede was over 30 minutes.
Stadium Stampede, but I'll give things like that credit, and that's kind of the problem. WWE, if you think about it, like when they had the Iron Man match at like WrestleMania 12, they had the Iron Man match with like 4 or 5 other quick matches on the card. These guys at AEW, they have Iron Man matches, but still 8 other matches on these cards to make them long. Stadium Stampede reminds me a little bit of a Royal Rumble, and because of that, you didn't necessarily need 8 other matches. It could have been a 5 match card plus a Stadium Stampede that really takes up the bulk of like an hour. So I'm fine with the length of the Stadium Stampede match. It was very entertaining. I actually found a cool little element that most of it was taped live, which is not something you guess you'd see with like WWE in that sense, because somebody did happen to be sitting in the absolute nosebleed seats and took their camera and faced it out into the parking lot and saw the one scene where Jungle Boy drove his truck, the big Jungle Express, into a car to try to smash. I don't even remember who it was exactly. There were so many people involved. But he did drive. I think it was Mark Davis. Tried to drive his bus, but that happened like live, and it wasn't taped earlier, which you might expect it to be in those kind of elements that are happening not live. But that was entertaining. I mean, those things, a great entertaining match. Don't care about the length. Specifically, obviously, if the event overall is not 4 hours long, plus a 1 hour long pre-show, 5 hours and 10 minutes if you're counting the pre-show. I understand it's a big event for AEW, but a little bit long. But overall, I thought it was a good event. Edge and Christian, or as Cope and Christian, if you will, Cope and Cage became the new tag team champions. The start of the show, I thought that was the highlight of the whole show. A great match. That and Stadium Stampede match, great. I did hear that they were not allowed to have blood. So there was some moments of the Stadium Stampede match which would have gone a little bit farther in the past. But in New York, they were not sanctioned to have blood in their match, which is kind of unique in that sense. So
Man, I feel bad for John Moxley then. He loves blood. So
yeah, too bad for John Moxley. Had one of the more regular matches of the night, and that's kind of the thing, right? His match at the night was entertaining, but didn't go too long, thankfully.
Hey, one of the highlights for me of the night was Takeshita Okada. That was fun.
Yes.
I got to see some clips back, and it looks like Takeshita is officially breaking away from the Don Callis family. And I did see, didn't we have a return as well in that?
Kyle Fletcher made his return. And I'll ask you this, Brandon, right? As going with somebody to this event that, maybe as an outside wrestling fan, right, that kind of is going to tell you how it is. The wife told me with AEW, the entrance music for each wrestler is more distinct than in WWE. What do you think about that?
I don't think that's a bad analysis. I do feel like a lot of the WWE entrances can be very generic. I think now that I think about it, I could see AEW has. I think they have the better. I guess, like you said, the better entrance music. I mean, aside from, I do like Braun Breakers. I think Braun Breakers is good. Obafemi's is good, but the general consensus, I could buy that. I could definitely buy that. I mean, are you in line with the misses on that?
Well, the reason I was saying that because as somebody who doesn't really follow AEW as I follow WWE, sometimes it took me a minute. Like for example, Kyle Fletcher when he made his return, took me a second to realize who was coming out because it doesn't say Kyle Fletcher on the screen, right? I think it said the prototype or the proto star. That's his thing.
That's his thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't necessarily pick up on that immediately when that came out, but I think I guess just Jericho, obviously when he comes out, or Cage or Adam Copeland, right? He had the theme in WWE. That was probably one of the cooler highlights tonight. Everyone singing his song when he came out. But yeah, Kyle Fletcher turning on Takeshita, setting up a little bit of a rivalry, I guess continuing that storyline from Okada and Takeshita there to see what more we can do with that.
I like the fact that Takeshita is breaking off from the Don Callis family. I don't think he needs it. I think he's good enough on his own to do his own thing. Mm-hmm. And honestly, same with the rest of the crew from the Don Callis family. But I think this is perfectly well done. I felt because in that moment from the clips that I did see from that mm-hmm. match and the post match, it seemed like Takeshita and Kyle Fletcher were good until they weren't. So that was.
Now let me ask you this again, coming from another casual AEW fan, in the arena, which I have to give AEW maybe some credit. WWE during WrestleMania, the main event, sure, everyone is loud and vocal, but for AEW, everyone was like living and breathing on every one of these guys, screaming and yelling, a much more vocal, loud crowd. But Takeshka was the favorite to win it, according to the fan. Not the favorite to win the match, but the fans were literally like it was, John Cena versus the Iron Sheik, if you will. The way that they wanted Takeshka to win this match against Okada. It wasn't
Good.
50-50.
Okada's
It was
great too, but Takeshka's awesome.
Yes. So you agree with that kind of, if you were there too, you can understand why it was literally a home game for Takeshka in that sense.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah, as more of a casual, I mean, I can't sit here and say I watch AEW every single match, every single week. I don't tune into Dynamite regularly. I pop in, I pop out. I just, I see what's going on. And obviously, we do a podcast. I want to keep up with things and know what's going on. And Takeshka has always been somebody I've had my eye on. Obviously Okada's been a big name. Osprey's been a great, big name.
Mm-hmm.
But I like Takeshka's work in the ring. I think he can make anybody look good. And obviously he doesn't have to make Okada look good because Okada is one of the best in the business. But you put Takeshka in a match with, we'll say like a mop. He'll make the mop look good. The mop's going to get over kind of a thing. Like that's how good that dude is.
We've got two now pay-per-views until AEW's big all-in Wembley Stadium in August. We originally had Forbidden Door, which is a month from now, but they just added another pay-per-view. AEW Redemption is going to be in July in Montreal. I don't know the exact day, but they just added another one. So we're peaking ever so closer to AEW having 12 a year, right? Just like the WWE. Now, again, are you a fan of AEW having a pay-per-view every single month? Is this the route they should be going? Because we're pretty much there after they now add this one in July.
Honestly, I think I've said it before on previous episodes. I like the formula of like 6 to 8 weeks. I'm pretty consistent in that, I believe. I think 6 to 8 weeks, it doesn't have to be maybe more towards 6, maybe not so much 8. But I feel like 6 weeks is enough time to let things breathe in between shows and building stories and putting stuff together. When you stack them as much as WWE does, sometimes I feel like the product just kind of gets a little meh. And that's why these shows are so good with AEW right now. I got to give them credit. I mean, they put on really good shows. Bar none. Some of the times when you watch these matches, you're like, I wish I got some of that in WWE more so. I mean, there are some matches like that. Like I've seen some really good matches in WWE, but AEW, like when you see matches like Okada and Takeshka, I want more of that kind of stuff. And I'll be honest, like, to kind of switch gears just a quick second, like I really enjoyed Montez Ford and Seth Rollins this past week on Raw. That to me felt more like what AEW puts on with all these different matches. Like I think very highly of Montez and obviously Seth. So like I want more matches like I saw there. And sometimes AEW does, provides that better than WWE does.